Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Friends, today, Saturday, the 8th of April, 2023, we hope to discuss the inner sutta or debt from the Anguttara Nikaya or the numerical discourses of the Buddha. This sutta deals with debt in mundane life, that is financial debt, and in the homeless life, that is spiritual debt. According to the sutta, the Buddha states that for one who enjoys sensual pleasures, poverty is suffering in the world. They don't like to be poor because they want to enjoy sensual pleasures. And sometimes it needs money. Getting into debt is suffering. Having to pay interest is suffering. When you take debts, you have to pay interest. Being reproved for not paying interest, that is also suffering. Prosecution for not paying is suffering. Then imprisonment is suffering. Not living within his means, his or her means, longing for sensual pleasures, borrowing money, that person suffers for his or her craving. The Buddha compares this kind of worldling to a renunciant who lacks faith. Faith is saddha in developing wholesome qualities. Having no sense of moral shame, that is called hiri in Pali, or dread, that is ottappa. No energy, that is virya, and no wisdom, panya. So, such a person is also poor, though a renunciant. Without faith, she or he engages in misconduct by body, speech, and mind. This is getting into debt, according to the Buddha. Then she or he tries to conceal her or his bad behavior with words, different kinds of excuses. This is the interest she or he has to pay. Other well-behaved monks talk about his or her bad behavior. This is being reproved. When she or he tries to meditate, only unskillful, unwholesome thoughts arise in the mind. This is similar to prosecution and later imprisonment. After coming in contact with the noble Dhamma, that person takes to enjoyment in sensual pleasures and comes to a bad end after death. What is worldly poverty? A poor person may borrow in desperation when a child or a very dear person is sick. But to engage in sensual pleasures, getting into debt, is due to delusion. She or he would promise to pay the interest also, though the person has no surety, no money to pay, but promises when borrowing. When one does not pay back in time, the creditors come after the debtor, pressing him or her to pay. She or he suffers both mentally and physically and tries to hide. But the lender follows and prosecutes him or her, thus increasing the suffering. Other good people talk about bad karma and suffers. You see how people suffer with their bad karma and their results. Then the debtor thinks of his or her own bad karma and suffers in solitude. When he or she is imprisoned, one weeps thinking of the consequences of his or her actions. Untimely or ultimately after death, this one is reborn in hell or the animal world. Let us look at the 5 qualities that form a protecting wall around any practicing Buddhist, no matter whether that person is a renunciant or a householder, it does not matter. If that person has these 5 qualities, that person is a good practitioner. Saddha or faith is the first step on the path. Martin Luther King Jr. says, faith is taking the first step, even when you don't see the whole staircase. That was from his point of view as a Christian, I think. But still it resonates even here. Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi says, as a factor of the Buddhist path, faith or saddha does not mean blind belief. Just because someone says it or it's in a book, not that kind of belief, but a willingness to accept on trust certain propositions that we cannot at our present stage of development personally verify for ourselves. You see now, if a person is not at least Sotapanna, that person is not very well developed. So such a person cannot verify by oneself, but one can take on trust. Saddha means accepting and trusting the teachings of the Buddha and the Dhamma, which can later be verified by one's direct experience. For one grows and develops as one understands and practices. One can make mistakes, but as you see your mistake, you can correct it. So as you go on correcting, practicing, you develop. So then you become more and more trustful and take the teaching as the truth. Saddha is not mere confidence, but a purifying mental factor of the mind. Buddha calls it a treasure or wealth, saddha dhanang. You see, that's how it is said. Its power generates energy, mindfulness, concentration, and right understanding. You see, saddha, when one has saddha, all these other powers also within, grow within that person, develops within that person, little by little. Maybe not suddenly, you become a very great practitioner, but little by little, right? Its power generates that kind of energy. When one has genuine faith, it gives one guidance in leading a life of charity, morality, and spirituality. Saddha arouses in us a sense of possibility so that we become patient enough to let the Dhamma take its natural course and develop our spirituality. For each one has differing ability to absorb and understand the Dhamma. So when you have that kind of faith, Saddha, you allow the Dhamma to develop in you, little by little. We begin to look for the truth individually rather than believe what others say. At first, it may be a sparkle in our minds that we are going in the right direction, right path. Then, as our practice gets more centered, we feel more and more confident in ourselves. When our experience of the Dhamma becomes very deep, it creates an unshakable quality which is called avecchapasada. Avecchapasada means unshakable pasada, that is faith, right? Unshakable. You will never listen to anybody saying this is not the truth. You will never believe that. We'll see for ourselves the lessening of our delusions, anger, hatred, fear, and a willingness to accept the teaching. The next quality that promotes wholesome growth is hiri. This is translated into English as moral shame or self-respect, which causes one to avoid non-virtuous actions. If we see right and wrong through the lens of hiri, it will show what standard of behavior is right and what we should avoid. It can guide us with compassion if we allow it to do so. Sometimes hiri reminds us of our family responsibilities or obligations, or our own dignity and honor, or our education, because we are educated enough not to do such things, or our old age. As you grow old, you mature, isn't that so? Which should make us wiser. Not always, but it does. When hiri is in our subconscious mind, we'll try to avoid wrongdoing, for it defiles us, rather than later feel regretful for a wrong done. People like Hitler, Mao, or even Putin have acted with faith in their actions as being right for humanity. But as they were deluded, they have caused much damage and great harm to the whole world. To possess hiri is to be ashamed of misconduct in body, speech, and mind, and being involved in evil, unwholesome deeds. Someone who is unrestrained may try to hide his or her bad qualities by pretense or lying. But the more he or she tries, the worse it becomes. So it is said that he or she collects karmic interest. That is where the interest comes into the debt. Though he thinks or he or she thinks others do not know, sooner or later the truth will come out. In the Adhipateya Sutta, it is given as, now this is a verse in the Adhipateya Sutta, for one performing an evil deed, there is no place in the world called hidden. The self within you knows, you know it, O person, whether it is true or false. You know it, so whether others know it or not, it does not matter. The karma will follow you. The Buddha states, feelings of guilt can't undo a past error, nor can it stop one from repeating it. You see, because one tries to hide it, so that means that person has not understood the gravity of it. So he suggests, now that is why the Buddha suggests the word shame or hiri without using the word guilt, right? Without the sense of unworthiness that is usually attached to that word. Buddha does not attach unworthiness to it. In Ambalattika Rahulovada Sutta, Buddha tells Rahula to think of his past mistakes, very little small mistakes, but to, Buddha sees to it that he grows up very pure. So he tells Rahula not to think of his past mistakes, not to think of them, not to think of himself as shameful, but to think of the past mistakes as shameful. Now, there is a difference, isn't that so? To think of the past mistakes as shameful. Yes, they are shameful. But the doer is not the shameful person, right? So, Buddha is teaching his son to look honestly at his mistakes so that he would not repeat them. In Buddha's public sermons too, he called hiri or shame a guardian and a treasure of the world. Now we come to the next quality, that is ottappa. Right? Ottappa, the third quality that helps to purify our minds, is known as moral fear. Fear to do the wrong things. Thinking of the consequences of a wrong act, or ashamed to be blamed and criticized by others, or not wanting to lose one's reputation, or fear of legal punishment. One restrains from evil. Whatever the cause, you refrain from evil. That is a great thing. Another powerful thought is the force of karma. which may bring painful results in the future. So that also is there. If someone believes in karma. Abhidhamma gives a simile of a metal bar smeared with excreta on one end and red hot, very hot, right, at the other end. So no one can use it to hit another. This is like one's inner conditions of virtue or sila that restrains one's outward behavior. Ottappa is shrinking in fear from wrongdoing. To end suffering, we have to abandon craving, ill will, and ignorance. To understand the Four Noble Truths, we need to be truthful in our intentions. Our human dignity lies in accepting our faults and making a resolution not to repeat them. Both Thiri and Ottappa are called the foundations of morality. These two work together. Very often you find them together in any, sutta or any talk or any place where they are discussed. You find them together, with Hiri and Ottappa. For while Hiri guards our inner self, Ottappa sees to our outer self and our relations with the outer world. So now we come to the next quality that keeps us pure. Virya is translated as energy or effort though it can be used for unwholesome deeds, right? Virya can be used for unwholesome deeds also, not only wholesome deeds. In the spiritual context, it causes one to gladly engage in wholesome activities. One becomes vigorous and enthusiastic in doing virtuous and positive things, for it's an antidote against spiritual laziness. Sometimes we get up in the morning with great difficulty, isn't that so? Oh, it's very cold, it's very hot, it's very whatever, I just can't, I can feel a little bit, I would like to sleep a little bit longer. Like that, you see. So you don't get up at the time that you want to or you meant to get up. When starting a new project, we need courage and willingness to begin. To begin whatever the project, you need these two things. Courage to begin and willingness. Then we need the effort or virya not to falter when faced with certain difficulties, and thirdly, to continue the growth, not letting it become inactive. Sometimes when whatever thing that we started, when you see it doesn't work, you just think, oh, what is the use of doing it? I'm going to stop. That is not how you must start something. You must go on doing it. And then it will succeed, right? Whatever it is, spiritually or in the mundane world. These three steps are relevant to both mundane and spiritual activities. Virya develops one's character, be more independent, and works for the benefit of everybody. Skillful virya increases our wisdom, thus helping us to investigate and get rid of the hindrances. You remember our hindrances that we talked about earlier? These 5 hindrances are the ones that make us stop even when we are meditating. So all those things can be got rid of through effort or virya. Now, the first thing about this is right effort is the will to prevent evil and unwholesome states of mind from arising. That is virya, right? The first thing about virya is it prevents unwholesome states of mind from coming up. Second thing is about virya, this is also called sammapadana virya, getting rid of such evil and unwholesome states that have already arisen. Now, sometimes even in monastic life, sometimes, evil thoughts, evil ideas spring up. So, to stop that, right? To get rid of them. That is the second effort. Then the third one that is quality of this virya is cause to arise good and wholesome states not yet produced to happen. Now, so far the good states have not come. We try to make them happen. Then the fourth one is to develop the good states that are already there, right? So that is about how virya has these 4 qualities. To be a truly balanced and complete person, you must develop both wisdom and compassion. Wisdom and compassion go together. The highest wisdom is seeing that in reality, all phenomena is incomplete, impermanent, right? And not self. These are the 3 qualities of everything you call sankhara. Whether it is the earth, the seasons, societies that we belong to, our bodies, thoughts, etc., are constantly in a state of flux. Another aspect of wisdom is understanding suffering caused by change and insecurity. By attaching to them, our lives are constantly in pain. Constantly we feel pain because we are attached to these, impermanent things. And we try to hold on to them. So, most of our time is spent in trying to preserve and hold on to what we have. Maybe our spouses, our children, our house, our wealth, whatever we have. And suppress the reality. The reality is that it is impermanent, it is not self, and it is changing all the time, right? It gives only suffering. So that reality you try to forget. You think of it as something that will always be there. If we can recognize the unsatisfactoriness and the fire burning within us, we'll feel a joy and freedom from suffering, even momentarily. To simply believe what we are told is not wisdom. True wisdom is to directly see and understand for ourselves, not because another person says it. Wisdom is also to keep an open mind, listening to others' point of view, carefully examining facts, and forming your own opinion. There are three kinds of wisdom. One, Suttamaya Panya, that is received from books or by listening. Two, Chintamaya Panya, acquired by thinking and reasoning. Three, Bhavanamaya Panya, attained by direct spiritual experience. That is why meditation is necessary. According to the Visuddhi Magga, I think most of you must have heard of it. Visuddhi Magga is the book written by Venerable Buddhaghosa. So, sometime in the 18th century, maybe. So, according to the Visuddhi Magga, it is abolishing the darkness of delusion that one obtains wisdom. By getting rid of delusion or ignorance, you get wisdom. When we have wisdom, we could overcome our habitual tendencies and arrive at a fresh and holistic view. That is a whole view, of the whole, everything as a whole, right? Of any situation. Now, sometimes we see only part of what is happening. But if we have wisdom, we will see the whole thing. How it happened, why it happened, what is going to happen. Also, if we develop an unselfish mind, we'll come closer to Buddha's wisdom. True wisdom is changing
I will come in sometime.
Your internal dialogue. That is between your inner better nature and baser nature. We have a certain way of talking to ourselves inside, isn't that so? So that it has two sides, a baser nature and a better nature. So we have to teach the inner good nature stronger dialogues to use against the baser nature. Now, when we think of doing something bad, right, or come out with something bad, you see, through speech, the better nature, if we make it stronger, we can suppress it without allowing it to come out. That is why Buddha says silence is golden. So, Buddha knew that true wisdom can arise only when we practice wise thoughts so that they overcome the bad ones. It's not easy, but it has to be practiced individually. No, you can't do it to another person. You yourself has to do it. It is self-discipline in body, mind, and word, leading to self-development and self-purification. The more wisdom of the Buddha is aroused in us, the more powerfully we can direct all things, our knowledge, talents, etc., to create happiness for ourselves and others. Thank you. So now if you have any questions, please ask. Then shall we do a little meditation? Okay, now let us then sit in meditation. Now, Lingesh asks, what kind of solution Buddha gives for death? So, for debt. Now, sometimes, of course, you cannot help it, but you have to go and borrow something, right? If you don't have. But Buddha gives, in many suttas, Buddha talks about different ways of how to conserve your whatever wealth you have. Now, supposing maybe you are very poor, but still there is some way of earning some money or some way of getting some kind of wealth. Maybe you are an agriculturist, you have a little plot of land where you plant something and you maybe sell something and then you get some money or whatever way to divide your whatever the earning into 4 parts, and then use one part for to for general expenses, then for so I found another comment. I'll talk about it later after finishing this. One part for whatever general expenses that you have in the household, if you are householder. Then another 2 parts for whatever you your present job, whatever, whether it's agriculture or whether it's farming, or whether it's you have a cow and so on and you spend on that, whatever, right? Your way of earning, you spend 2 parts, and 1 part you save for yourself. So therefore, when you save even a little bit every month, you will have a little bit of money for any difficulty. So that is one way of Buddha talking about how not to get into debt. But on the other hand, what Buddha talks about is not about getting into debt for a very, very special reason, in desperation when your child is sick or something like that, when you don't have anything. But when you, for selfish reasons, when you want for gambling or for alcohol or something like that, then it is not correct. Leaving your family, starving, you go and have some pleasure on your own, which is wrong. So that is one way of what Buddha has talked about, how to get rid of debt. Always effort is very, very useful. Now I found another comment, that is not to talk about money so much. But on the other hand, in mundane life, money is the most important factor about living, isn't that so? Because without money, you can't find any sort of whatever you want, right? Whether you want material, whether you want things for living, say groceries or whatever, you can't do without it. So money is essential, but money is not the but you can't find happiness with it. True, happiness is not because of money or because you have money. But on the other hand, without money also, what Buddha says is, a poor person always suffers, because when poverty is something that nobody wants and nobody likes, but sometimes it happens. So therefore, we should not think that money is the most important factor in life. But without money also, it is not possible to live in this world. Now, a renunciate will depend on others for their living, right? Now, especially for the food, a renunciate will depend on the alms food that that person gets. But to get that food, the householder must have money to make the food. See, to uh, to donate it or to give it as alms to a renunciate, even the householder must have money. So therefore, money is something important in lay life. You can't live without it. Uh, then there, I found another comment. What is that? I can't remember what it was. I think Lingesh is the one who wrote it the second time. Okay, so I think so. Yeah, when we are when we are when we have a lot of craving or greed, we want more and more, right? So that is also part of selfishness. So living in this world, if people can think of others too. Now, for instance, uh, 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 in a family, you have, say, 4 children, and the parents the parents have to provide for all 4 children. So, but if one person, one child wants more than uh, for what is given to the others, then that is not fair. So, everyone must in a family think of each other, not of oneself only, because uh, a family means a community. Uh, they are born into that family because of their karma. They have come together. So therefore, uh, it is very important that you think not only of one yourself, but also of the whole family, right? If you cannot think of your own family, how can you, once you have your own family, now as a child, you belong to a certain family. But when you grow up, you make your own family. Then if you are a selfish person who has always wanted your own happiness, then how can you, when you become a householder yourself, how can you make your family a perfect, happy family, right? Now I come to Lingesh, the comment Lingesh has made, that is about lending money. So even during the Buddha's time, there were people who lent money, and that was their job. So different people have different ways of earning money, but only thing is it has to be righteously done. Whatever the way that you earn it, it has to be righteous. So even lending money is not a wrong thing if you have a lot of money and you can afford to lend it, but your interest should be righteous. It should not be exorbitant, it should be something that is within and you must think of the person who has taken the debt, whether that person can pay it, and, be more compassionate towards the person. So like that, the more you think of the others, the more things will happen to you. You will be happier. So you must write and see. Okay. Any more questions or any more comments? I'm glad that there were a few questions and comments. So then let us do our usual meditation for about 10 minutes, right? Please sit down. Please sit comfortably and relax into your posture. Now, you know that when you sit, it has to be, you have to be gentle with yourself, right? Don't think that you should be rough. Be very gentle towards yourself. See that your posture is comfortable and your head, neck, and spine are straight. If you are on a chair, keep your feet flat on the ground. And your hands in your lap, maybe the right hand on top of the left hand, or on your knees. That's also okay. So now be very calm and close your eyes and settle into your posture slowly, silently. Now take a few deep breaths. Okay, now when you take your breath, be very gentle and also kind to yourself. Okay, now let us see our body, the body in the body, that is the breath in the body. Now, before we come to the breath, let us have a look at our own body. Now, focus your mind on the top of your head and see what sensations you can see there. Whether there is irritation, comfort, the air touching your head, whatever sensation you feel. Move down to the sides of your head. Now take your mind to the back of your head. See whatever sensations you feel there. Come to the forehead. Now you feel the air touching your forehead. Maybe it's cool or maybe it's a little warm. Go down to the eyes. See the eyeballs in your sockets. And they are closed, the lids are closed, but you can see. Come down to the cheeks. Feel the air on your cheeks. Your lips now closed slightly, not very tight. See inside. The tongue, not very active at this moment, but you can feel the saliva in your mouth and go down to the chin and neck. Perhaps now you feel the clothes, whatever you're wearing, on your neck. Shoulders, Are they relaxed? Spine, is it straight? The arms hanging from the shoulders, a slight weight. Now you see the arms bent at the elbows and the hands on one on the other, or maybe on your knees. Go down to your chest now. See the chest rising and falling according to the in-breath and the out-breath. Go down to the belly. Again, the rising and falling. Go down to the buttocks. You feel the hardness of the floor or the cushion or the chair. The thighs and how the legs are crossed at the knees if you are seated like that. Go further down to the legs and the feet, the toes. Okay, now you have gone through the body as it is seated, the sitting body, sitting body. Now come back to the nose and let us spend a few moments with the breath. See the breath going in and out, in and out, in and out, rising, falling, rising, falling. It will be in a sort of rhythm now. Just coming and going, coming and going. Calm and pleasurable. Now, carefully, silently, open your eyes and get accustomed to the environment again. See if you are calm now and maybe feeling a sense of joy, happiness. Thank you for coming. May all of you be well, happy and peaceful.